I got the 51 cent per gallon subsidized ethanol blues. I do. The water table's dropping. My land is worth less than my shoes. We used to have something called free enterprise, but if you know the right people, you'll get subsidized. I got the 51 cent per gallon subsidized ethanol blues.
On this farm in the rolling hill country of northern Maryland, the Holters, rallying to the call for more food, join the growing army of victory gardeners. Now let's see on this little model of their quarter-acre garden the plan they work out. Here's the early garden. Here, 4 rows of early potatoes. Then 2 double rows of peas, early, medium, and late. 1 row of cabbage. Double row of carrots and beets, half a row of each. 1 double row of greens, spinach, mustard, turnips, and chard. Tomatoes, early and late, wilt resistant. Peppers, half a row. Radishes, lettuce, and onions next to the house. Asparagus and rhubarb beds are at the side. Pole beans, 3 rows. 4 rows of sweet corn along the fence. And finally, 2 rows of lima beans complete the early garden.
Victory gardens were a popular part of life during the first half of the 20th century. The gardens aided the war effort by easing domestic food demands and encouraging self-reliance among American families. Once vital, the idea had faded from public memory with the advent of industrial agricultural operations and the commercialization of food production. The challenges of today's energy-dependent world include merging food production with fuel production. In the United States, corn has been a favored agricultural choice to reduce energy dependence through the production of ethanol, despite the fact that it makes up only a fraction of our total oil consumption. Every year, billions of dollars in subsidies are available at all stages of ethanol production, making it a very lucrative industry. For this reason, areas like Webster County, Missouri have been receiving attention from ethanol proponents. When residents of Rogersville learned that an ethanol manufacturing plant was being proposed for construction in their community, their concern was with the competition for natural resources and wastewater disposal.
Dear Ms. Tolliver, thank you for contacting me regarding your concerns with the proposed ethanol plant in Webster County. In an effort to be of assistance to you, I have made an inquiry on your behalf with the Environmental Protection Agency. As soon as I have received any information from them, I will get back in touch with you. Yours very truly, Ike Skelton, Member of Congress. Doesn't seem to ever be another reply.
We have already, in this area, reached the limit. We are already overdrafting the basin. I think it's more effective to do some reasonable planning and restrictions on industries that are inappropriate for the site in which they are proposed for location. Good industries would be doing that work up front. Speculative industries don't bother with that.
If a big plant like that comes in and gobbles up all of our natural resources and pollutes the area, and then they'll be on their way. And we'll be left sitting here with no water and our streams polluted, our springs polluted. There's a locally famous spring here on this farm. And it was at one time the water supply for Portland, Missouri. And it will not survive if that plant is there, and it's been here for thousands of years. And just to see the destruction of life as you know it. This board represents, we've used it as an information thing to let people know how many lovely homes and old homes and family homesteads and century farms there are in the area. And a century farm is a farm that has been in the same family continuously for 100 years or more. And there's several century farms here. It's a state awarded thing. But there's beautiful homes, new homes, and then here's an old log cabin that was built in the 1840s.
This is Dad Holder. He helps with the heavy work. Mother well, she helps with most everything. Grandpa Holder, he says the only honest way to get a mess of peas or a crown of glory is to work for it. Brother Bill is in the Army, but Dick, 14 years old, takes his place. And this is Jane, just 16. The Holders have selected vegetables that are grown easily, good yielders, rich in vitamins, and can be canned or stored for winter use.
Our country was built on the small farmer and the independent ownership of land and the ability to raise your own food and take care of your own family in that way. And as the big agribusinesses gobble up the small farms, I believe that our country is getting deeper and deeper in trouble. That's a personal feeling of mine, because the small guy is being forced out. It's all based on oil, and it's all based on out-of-control consumption. It's all based on expand, expand, grow, 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 and you reach a point. I love my country, but there's things about it that don't make me very proud. I just think I think we're spoiled.
A 2005 energy bill required that the United States boost its ethanol production to 8 billion gallons by 2012, up from 4 billion gallons in 2005. That's a lot of ethanol, but in comparison, the United States consumed 140 billion gallons of gas in that same year. Corn ethanol is promoted as a solution to our energy dependency, but even at an optimum production level of 8 billion gallons per year, it is still less than 1% of our total gasoline consumption.
Right across about the back end of the grape arbor was the fence, and that was a calf lot. The peach tree is probably over 100 years old, and it has the most beautiful peaches on it. I can peaches every year, and I put a lot of love in this place. I don't want to think about losing it. In the picture of the backyard, I mean, it doesn't look very good now, but I'm just telling you. These three things right here, they're peonies. Those were the only thing that were here. We built all these flower beds. We built these 2 rooms onto the house. We built the front porch. William dug this by hand. And I built the wall, about 200 feet of it. Each corner post has a time capsule in it.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a funny story about him when I'm off tape. This is a French squash. It's an heirloom French squash. Pretty, isn't he? Get my carrots?
Oh, nice.
This is called beauty berry. It's a Missouri native.
Okay.
It's birds like it. I try to plant for the birds and the wildlife, that sort of thing.
And that just about covers the Holder Victory Garden. Just one of thousands of such farm gardens. Just a sample that you can match in most any community in America. Each a health insurance policy, a dooryard savings bank. Each a vitamin mine from which you can take stuff more precious than silver or gold.
Now let's consider the area around Rogersville. It's an upland area, and most of the soils there, and certainly all of them on this proposed 250-acre site, are underlain by soils that have a fragipan in them. The fragipan is a very dense layer that retards the movement of water down into deeper soils. It's just a couple feet below the ground, extends down for varying distances depending on which soil series you have. The result is you don't get much groundwater recharge through it. One of the things that the proponents for this plant have said they plan to do was to create a no discharge facility. In other words, all of their wastewater would go into the ground on their facility. That's not going to work where you have the kinds of soils that are there, where you have the fragipan. It won't go through. My projections are that on the order of 90% of all the wastewater they generate will run off their property. It will run off, go into losing streams, and go into the shallow aquifer. The shallow aquifer and those losing streams are all upstream of a water supply intake for the city of Springfield. And of course, that's very important.
In all nature, there is no such thing as really pure water. Even rain collects particles and gases as it comes down. No matter what it once held, by the time it gets into our homes, it must be free from harmful impurities. It must measure up to federal, state, and local standards. Different types of contamination call for different treatment methods, which include flocculation, clarification, filtration, disinfection. What does this mean? It means a better, safer drink of water for you.
Their expert came out of Denver, Colorado, and under sworn court testimony, he had never been in an ethanol plant. He had never seen one up close. He had never designed a treatment system for an ethanol plant. And his plan that he showed in court was a big circle like this with another circle inside it. That was his treatment plan, which I found pretty amazing. The plan that he testified to in court was that they were going to take this 12 million gallons of water and they were going to irrigate 75 acres with it. This area is a very ecologically fragile area, and about 18 inches to 2 feet down we have what's called fragipan. We call it hardpan, but the scientists call it fragipan. So his plan B, this is all in the court testimony, plan B, they were going to scrape down below the fragipan and release it into the groundwater.
Put in regular dirt. Regular dirt.
They were going to put better dirt in to filter it. And by court testimony, this waste would be 6 to 12 times more toxic than household waste.
Now, in terms of the quality of the wastewater, yes, it will be treated. That's part of their plans. One of the ways you characterize wastewater and the difficulties involved in treating it is by looking at what are called BOD or COD values. Those letters stand for biochemical oxygen demand or chemical oxygen demand. The strength of the waste, the stronger it is, the more difficult it is to treat. The waste they are proposing to generate would have a strength of 8 to 8.5 times that of typical raw municipal sewage. So it's a very strong waste. So that creates treatment problems, and then you have to dispose of the treated water. That's a major problem in the setting that they are in. Again, that goes to site suitability. You've got to have a suitable site for doing the things you want. And just because you hire an engineer doesn't mean that the site's going to work the way you want to. You're dealing with natural systems in terms of water supply and natural systems in terms of disposal of your wastewater.
The water that is under us, the Ozark Aquifer, and it runs clear out into Kansas, is replenished from other parts of the state and the area. And there are pockets where it goes up, you know, and drops back down. The variance in the wells is considerable around here, but it is an entire area, according to the experts that I've heard, of caverns, underground streams that water, the effluent would be released into. And ultimately, this is the top, this ridge that runs along with 60 Highway is a ridge, the backbone of an ancient mountain range. All water that falls here or is created, dirty water that is created here, runs away from here. We are the watershed for the James and the Finley, and consequently the lakes down around Branson. No water runs into this area. So what is polluted here is going all over southwest Missouri. Wow. And I've been amazed at the apathy of the citizenry that they're willing to face 12 million gallons of polluted water a year.
Unchecked stream pollution, which befouls our lakes and rivers with filth and scum, is ruining billions of gallons of water every year. To reclaim much of this contaminated water by purification, as well as eliminate natural impurities, intricate water treatment plants have been built. Your drink of water may be processed in a complex plant like this. Yes, waterworks operation is a skilled and technical profession, requiring trained and experienced personnel.
Maintaining water quality is one of the most severe problems that characterizes karst areas. Karst areas are very sensitive to groundwater contamination, groundwater pollution. That's because you have ineffective natural cleansing and very rapid movement of water through some of the karst groundwater systems. So contaminants introduced into the ground at one point may cause problems several miles away. Karst develops on soluble rocks. They are soluble in slightly acidic waters. So any area that you have limestone or dolomite, those are soluble rocks, or marble or gypsum, you get what are called karst landscapes. They are developed by water dissolving out flow routes through the bedrock. And then you get water moving from the surface into those features, giving you features such as losing streams and sinkholes. But sinkhole formation is a natural process. We have many sinkholes that have formed without man's intervention. But when man intervenes in things and changes the water regime in an area, either by depleting water or by putting water where it didn't go formerly, then you get sinkholes. For example, we get sinkholes in sewage lagoons in karst areas. And that's the reason most knowledgeable people are not going to design sewage lagoons in a karst area for waste disposal, because they develop sinkholes and you'll lose all the liquid and it'll come out in springs or in people's wells.
That's where these big sinkholes that are opening up around southwest Missouri are coming from, is because the water table is dropping. We actually had a sinkhole open up and fell out from under a cow, and it was like you just cut a circle and just took the plug out of the bottom of the bathtub or something, and this cow was about 12, 15 feet down, just standing down there. Just this big hole just opened and under her, and she just dropped. We had to get a backhoe and, you know, dig her a path out.
And in industry today, water is the universal raw material. Almost no product we take for granted could be made without water. Pure water in fabulous quantities.
In the vicinity of Rogersville, in the last year or so, groundwater levels have been dropping, based on some survey work we did, in the range of 40 feet or so per year. There have been 500 wells or more where drilling contractors have had to lower the elevation of the pumps in the wells to supply adequate water. And many wells are not deep enough that you can lower the pump anymore, so you lose the well and you have to drill a new one, which is a very expensive proposition. Bottom line is this: the aquifer, this lower Ozark aquifer, is already being depleted. When an aquifer is being depleted, what prudent management would dictate, and prudent protection of natural resources, is that you only use that water for the highest and best uses, such as drinking water supplies for people, or perhaps livestock watering, but not for industrial operations. The area around Rogersville is not a suitable site for something that is going to use enormous amounts of water, because it is going to deplete the aquifer.
There is something absolutely immoral and obscene about burning up our farmland to grow a fuel when there are starving people everywhere. I do not know how anyone, our government in any way, shape, or form, justifies such a misuse of our God-given resources. We can live without oil, there's alternate fuels, but we can't live without water. And wasting one resource to have another, to use up on another resource just doesn't make any sense to me. We cannot live without water.
Whoever you are, wherever you live, water is the liquid of life, as vital as the air you breathe. All the ancient races knew that not only life itself, but the very roots of society were dependent on water. And the rain god always stood high in the pantheon of deities. Never has there been built since the beginning of time a human habitation that was far from water supply. Water on the surface, or a store of water close by underground. Nowadays, most of us fetch and carry no more. Water is delivered to us where we need it, whenever we want it. Turn a faucet, and there is water, at any hour of the day or night. A glassful for any young citizen in the middle of the night. The health and happiness of our communities will be determined by how well we meet the needs for safe, abundant water. We must meet these needs. We are to have enough safe water, wherever and whenever we want it. Without water, life dries back to a crust, a world of dust and sun. Without water, life of individuals or nations perishes.
Support for the people who understand the situation has been absolutely overwhelming. Here's a native stone house that's got the sign in front of it that says, "United we stand, save our water, save our land." We're real people with real faces and real lives and real cares and concerns, and the total lack of concern from our government and any response from them of note at all has just absolutely been appalling. I mean, we have lives, we have children, we have families. Some of us have fought and died for this country or lost family members. It's just something I never thought would happen to me as an American.
I try and work across a broad spectrum, from people trying to prevent problems, I like doing that work, to people who have problems. It's a lot easier to prevent problems than try and fix them after they have occurred.
Follow the money, this don't pass the smell test, you see. Oh, I got the 51 cent per gallon subsidized ethanol blues. I do. The water table's dropping, the land is worth less than my shoes. We used to have something called free enterprise, but if you know the right people, you'll get subsidized. I got the 51 cent per gallon subsidized ethanol blues. Sacrifice the water and land, and what do you gain? I ask you. Sacrifice the water and land, and what do you gain? Line the pockets of cronies playing that subsidy game. Oh, I got the 51 cent per gallon subsidized